It's the Hoffman Show on a Wednesday on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope you are having a great Wednesday. I woke up to pretty much a bummer this morning. The NFL's international schedule is out. We are hoping by the end of the show to have the primetime schedule as well, at least some of it. We know that the Jets are playing the Dolphins on Black Friday, but still awaiting some of the other games that are expected to come out today. But the international schedule is out, and the Commanders are not on it. I'm sad. I'm sad about this because I really wanted them to play overseas, and I wanted to be able to go. I thought it would have been cool to have, obviously, everything this season is going to be under a little bit heightened microscope because of the ownership change, and I thought that would have been cool. Like, hey, here's this team that we used to not send anywhere, but we're going to send them overseas because we're proud of them now. Yay! Selfishly, I wanted to go to Germany, and I was going to go. It's a bummer for fans, too, like, make that an international trip. This team has not been there since 2017, which at this point is one of the longer stints. I will say from a team perspective, they hate it. It's a great experience, like, on a human level, but I think every NFL coach, if they could play at 1 o'clock on Sunday every single week, that's what they would do. No disruption in the routine. This is how we practice every single week. These are the days. This is the schedule for game day. Maximum recovery after the game. If every single team could play at 1 o'clock on every single Sunday, I do think that's what most NFL coaches, at least theoretically, would prefer. Maybe the occasional Sunday nighter to get the little primetime juice into the schedule. But honestly, they'd probably rather prefer the Saturday night. At that point, it's like, yeah, we'll just play Saturday night. Monday night, no, that screws with the next week. Saturday night, give us that. Thursday night, no coach ever wants it. Monday night, it's fun when it's there. You embrace it. But realistically, you don't love that either. But as fans, this is why the schedule release day is kind of important. Because you get to know, like, oh, what trips do I want to go on? What do I want to do? Are we going to get that game, in 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, Monday night, Thursday night? And obviously for today, with the full schedule release coming tomorrow on the Team 980, the release is at 8. Our coverage starts at 7. It's brought to you by Old Ox Brewery. Logan Paulson, Linnell Willingham will be live. Logan and I, by the way, talked about the schedule today on Take Command, the episode that will drop later today on YouTube and then first things in the morning in your audio feeds. And we talked about, how, for instance, like Denver is the Jacksonville of last year. We all wanted Jacksonville early last year. You get them early, and that turns out to be a win against a team that if you face them in December, you're probably getting rocked. It feels like Russell Wilson and Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos could be a team that has that potential this year if they figure it out. If Wilson is salvageable, I don't think it happens week 1, but the more they get to work together throughout the season, could they find a groove as the season goes in Denver? You'd rather just knock that out early when they're still figuring each other out. So there's things like that, that are important too, but bummed today to wake up and see that the international schedule is out and the Commanders, yet again, are not on it. However, Anthony Haney, super producer of this fine radio program and Colts second team fandom, or perhaps first team fandom because you have a personal connection. Your best friend plays on the team. That's allowable. We at least I, as the arbiter of this show, approve of this message. The Colts are going to Germany. The Colts got the Commander's spot. What the hell, bro?
That's how it shakes out sometimes, and I've decided, Craig, that I will be going to Germany for this game.
Are you really?
No, I'm not going.
What if we brought the show anyway?
That would be a
Hey,
cool trip.
we thought the Commanders were going to be here. Instead, we're just going to go.
That would be a ton of fun.
It would be.
A ton of fun. A lot of countries to travel to. I heard once you're over in Europe, it's very easy to travel.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Like Europe, if you were to put Europe, the entire continent, in the U.S., it would not cover most of it. Like,
really?
Yeah. Like, you can get from to remember. So Rachel used to live in Germany, and so she's told me a million stories. And she lived outside of Munich. Yeah, outside of Munich.
Mm-hmm.
And like she drove to like the coast of France once, and it was like a 14-hour drive. Think of where you can get to in the U.S. in 14 hours from here. Like you're not even halfway across the country.
Yeah.
So that gets you across a wide swath. Also, you know, if you drive 14 hours in some of the other directions, you're like in the ocean. So, yeah, you can get to Austria, from Germany, Austria, Italy, France, Holland. I mean, the flights in and out of London, although you have to fly or you take the train underneath the English Channel from France. But the flights from London to the rest of Europe are mad cheap. That's the other thing. Like, you can fly. It doesn't even make sense. It's like $30 flights across Europe.
$30
Some
flights?
of them, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The only flight I've ever seen like that here is like a Vegas to L.A. or a Phoenix to L.A. Sometimes you can get those for under $100 one way. But, like, you can't fly freaking anywhere on the East Coast of the U.S. for that cheap.
No, sir.
Unless you're taking, like, Spirit Airlines and they trip you on board and then step on your head like Joel did to Grant Williams. It's, like, part of the fare.
Yeah.
But no, just like a regular airline flight, $30, $40.
Now that's
Being a new
dope.
country. Yeah, they got a good setup over there for the travels.
Yeah.
But alas, Anthony, we're stuck. We're stuck here in America, and we're just going to have to deal with it for another year. So here's to next year, and Josh Harris getting the Commanders to Europe. Whatever. Oh, now my computer's gonna have a fight with me? This is my least favorite thing. When I hit a button and then it doesn't play, because then I just live in fear that eventually the thing's going to start. I don't think it registered. We're going to try again. Nope. All right, I'm just going to tell you what's still to come on the show without any of the fancy imaging. Mark Kessler is going to join us at the top of the hour. ESPN Radio play-by-play man covering the NBA playoffs. AJ Perez in 15 minutes on the Commanders' bid and the status of it for Josh Harris. The NFL Finance Committee is meeting today. AJ's got the latest. But next, Jason Wright profiled in The Athletic. A couple takeaways from that here on The Hoffman Show.
The NFL schedule.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980. Audio's working today on YouTube too, so you're not just watching me talk in silence. Apologies for those that tried to watch the first hour yesterday. But everything's up and running today from Go, youtube.com/@theteam980. While you're there, subscribe. Why don't you? That way you don't miss when we start the show every single day. You get the link sent right to your phone, your streaming device, whatever it is, your laptop, your smart TV, and, of course, all of our video content that we post on demand. Right now, I want to talk about Jason Wright, who was profiled for a story in The Athletic by our good pal Mike Jones. And Jason's definitely been doing a lot more interviews, and he did some stuff kind of behind the scenes, and now he's out front on the record talking to various publications and doing kind of, I think he's doing a good job in terms of putting together a way to hit a bunch of different audiences, that his stock and his profile is on the rise. He exposes himself to a lot of different people. He's done things for CNBC, the Pat McAfee Show, The Athletic. Honestly, we should probably see if he'll come sit down with us. Anthony, we should probably remind me in the next break to send a text message.
Got you. No question.
So we'll see if Jason wants to come on with us. I've talked to Jason before. I think he's a smart guy. I like him a lot in terms of where he would like to take the team and what things he would like to do. So I should say I like his ideas a lot. I don't have any issues with anything that he's done personally on a human level. I've obviously been critical of him at times for things that were areas where I think he's misstepped. Some of those are more, I would say it's all professional, but some of those are reflections of how he sees the world. And that's fine. We agree to disagree on some of those things. But at the end of the day, when reading this article, I think a couple of things stand out. And I think Mike did a phenomenal job because he not only talks to Jason, talks about the good things that he's done, but he talks to a bunch of folks that say, like, hey, these are the issues that I've had. These are things that have gone wrong. These are not just the laundry list of things that you know about, the Sean Taylor and failures, the variety, obviously the response to the name, all of those kinds of things. But there was items stolen from FedEx Field from vendors that things were not handled appropriately, and probably these incidents were preventable if people that were working on the business side of this organization had more NFL experience, more big game experience, if you will. And I don't mean like, their teams have made the playoffs. I mean, like, you've worked in professional sports. And I will say this too, before I even go further, I've worked in professional sports. It is a different beast. Not only have I worked in it in this capacity as an observer through the media, and look, what we do is big league. We are the big leagues. Like, we are covering these teams. We have the corporate partnerships. Like, obviously here on 980, we have the Wizards play-by-play rights, and there's certain things that go with that. And like, we play with the big boys. That is who we are. And if you haven't worked under and the biggest aspect of it is there's a level of scrutiny with that, right? Like, there's stuff I say that gets written up in the Washington Post sometimes. Like, that's a level of scrutiny that's different. Your actions are observed by a larger group of people if you're in the professional sports realm than the bubble you exist in, even if you're a big player in another industry. It's just different. And so while you can bring in a marketing executive, or someone lower down, not a non-executive, on the marketing side, on the suite sales, on ticket sales, they could do a good job because the job is similar to a lot of other things that they might have done in their previous industry, in their previous life. There are just certain challenges of professional sports, and obviously specifically to any franchise that has a history that is cared about by such a wide number of fans, that is different than any other company. And I think that's the areas, and it comes through in this piece that Mike does, where they have struggled and where I still think there is a lot of room for them to grow. And to me, this is the challenge that Josh Harris is going to have to decide is Jason Wright ultimately the right person to be the head of the organization? This is where I struggle, right? And I don't want to suggest Jason should or shouldn't have a job in any capacity. I think Jason ultimately being a part of this organization, I will only speculate on it because I actually will land on the side that I do think Jason probably belongs staying here at least for a while. And if he ultimately wants to jump somewhere else, or there's a mutual agreement to part ways, like he can go find another job in the NFL or go back to the consulting life. Like I don't think Jason Wright's gonna have a problem finding a job. But I do think in an ideal world, Josh Harris probably brings in someone at a CEO level that is higher than Jason, an executive, pick the title to make it work. It's hard because Jason is team president, right? There's not really anything above president. You can obviously create a CEO position or another C-suite position that reorganizes your organizational structure to do whatever you want if you're the owner. Like, you can make it work. But I think ideally, Jason probably would have been a vice president under another more experienced president and the kind of person who could push the envelope and play to his strengths. Because let's not get it twisted. Jason Wright, for all the times he's stepped in it, has a lot of strengths and has done a lot of good in terms of the internal structures of that organization or the internal infrastructure of that organization, filling out positions. By the way, doing it in a way that brings different voices to the table and helps them come up with some ideas that are different in a good way, that help change the NFL for the better and ultimately also help the bottom line. They have started to rejuvenate the season ticket base. Some of that is based off circumstances, but some of that is conscious choices that Jason made around the business strategies that were directly to him. It's things that Brian LaFemina tried to do and was shut down. But now that Bruce Allen is gone, Jason is able to actually implement these things, and he's had the know-how to actually execute it. These are good things. But I do think because of his general inexperience, like he's 40 years old. That's really young to be in his position. He has also spent most of his post-NFL playing career as a consultant, which means you are always on the outside, a step removed, and now he goes in not into an organization to be a part of it, but to run it, to be the guy. And I think some of that inexperience has caused some of the problems. So could you bring someone else in, let Jason continue to operate, but let that more senior person be the guardrails? I think that's an interesting thought that certainly Josh Harris will consider. The other thing that I will say real quick that I thought was interesting from this story is, as Jason has been very out front in recent weeks, Jason has done a bunch of interviews. Like we said, he spent a lot of time with McAfee on his show, which has a certain audience and a certain vibe. He was on CNBC. That's a different audience, a different vibe. Now he does The Athletic. That's a certain audience, a certain vibe. Ron Rivera was requested for this story and said no. Ron has run from the ownership question as much as he can, outside of the one chat he had with Albert Breer. He has generally said, we're just business as usual, laid relatively low, and it sounds like he's going to do his ownership work behind the scenes. There is a cynical part of me that says Ron doesn't want to talk about Jason, and that's something that's interesting and should be talked about. There's another part of me that just says maybe these are two men with different strategies and neither of them are incorrect. That Ron doesn't really feel the need to put himself out there one way or the other. He'll tell Josh Harris what Josh Harris, or answer the questions that Josh Harris has and tell him anything else about his job that he thinks he needs to know. There's another part of me that's like, maybe there's a little bit of a feud there a couple years in. Is there a power struggle? Is there a difference in opinion on certain things? I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that Rivera declined to be interviewed for the story. As Ron might say, interesting. Don't know whether it's important or not. I do think time tends to tell on those types of things. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. AJ Perez, Front Office Sports, joins us next. Speaking of Josh Harris, what's the status of his bid as it goes before the NFL's Finance Committee today? It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Joining us now from Front Office Sports, it's AJ Perez. AJ, what's up, buddy? Do we have AJ?
How's it going?
Oh, there we go. All right, just a little bit of a delay there, but I think we are all good. AJ joining us apparently from his gym.
Yes, yeah, here in Ashburn, yes.
Very nice, very nice. I'm going to want a complete tour, but we should probably not do that on a radio program. We'll have to do that another time. That's a different podcast. All right. So the NFL Finance Committee is meeting today. That is when we expected a pretty significant step in the Josh Harris, Dan Snyder negotiations. In fact, we expected perhaps a approval to be sent to the full ownership group for a couple weeks in Minneapolis. That was what we were hoping. What are we now hoping to get with all of the other reporting that's come out about this?
Yeah, no, it's not. I haven't got a lot today so far. Hopefully, I have something soon. But yeah, this should be one of the last towards a vote, because usually the recommendation from the finance committee is done at this point, and then they set a date, and the date would be May 22nd or May 23rd for the meetings that are going to be happening outside of somewhere in Minnesota, outside the MSP area. So but right now we just really haven't had any concrete, and it's kind of hard for us. I couldn't go into those meetings, or the NFL headquarters. I can't really sneak in there. So I'm just using kind of texting around to see what people know. And right now there's really not much out yet. So we're hoping to get something in the next couple hours.
So one of the things that was interesting from the Athletics report is Snyder still has not signed this deal. Like, there's an agreement, but not a signed deal. And Harris has unilaterally sent this to the league. Why is that so bizarre, and what does it mean?
It looks like Snyder, what it means from my sources is Roger Goodell has kind of been championing this process. This does not following the usual process. It's not like what we saw for the Broncos or the Panthers before that. Those really follow the NFL bylaws. This is not. So it looks like they usually to get this far in the process, the application has to be it, and the application only goes when a winning bidder is selected. You don't have that. So this progress is kind of gone. It's like the application is in, but it's not. But all the vetting looks like it's been pretty much done by this point. And we have up to 17 limited partners. So that's 18 total people. And that's going to be criminal background checks. That's going to be financial checks, make sure they have the money and everything else. That is a lot. That's a lot to go through. And it should take several weeks. So to get to this point where there could be a vote, it means, this process has kind of gone on in the background for many, many weeks.
AJ Perez, Front Office Sports, with us here on the Hoffman Show, the Team 980, the always free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@the-team980. So just to be clear, before I get any further and give anyone a heart attack, there's no anticipation at this point that this isn't going to go through, right? It's just, it's hey, how do we get around this obstacle course? Not, hey, do we need to quit this obstacle course?
Exactly. Yeah, there's really no indications that Dan Snyder, there are indications that, that the other owners and maybe even Roger Goodell, they've championed this process because Dan wasn't moving fast enough. There was that is a very serious possibility, that from one source, but it's kind of like, this should not be going like this. Dan should have picked somebody by now. There's only one person to pick. All the other fake money out there, from Brian Davis to Apostolopoulos to everybody else who wanted in, even Fertitta and Bezos. This is all, the only real bid has been Josh Harris, and it's been for many, probably a couple months now at least. And everybody knows that. But Dan Snyder, I don't know, it's hard for me to talk about whether there's some kind of legal agreement, identification, kind of like that, because my sources aren't saying that that's the issue. But there's something holding this up, and that one thing could be the Mary Jo White report, and when that's going to be released. I'm hearing that may not be released for many more months, actually, even when Josh Harris is expected to take over the team in June.
Wow, that honestly wouldn't be surprising at this point. Just he's got to be out, because I don't think they want to do anything to threaten the process. One line that I did think was super interesting from the Athletics reporting, though, was there was a line that says Snyder wants to sell. Right? We've been told this whole time, and certainly at the beginning of this process, like, Dan was dragged into this kicking and screaming. He did, like, his whole identity was being the owner of the team. He did not want to sell. At this point, he's over it. There was a report, it might have been you actually, who had about, like, when Tanya got booed, that was a pretty big deal. And that, changed the dynamic. So whatever has gotten us to this point, it's apparent that Dan wants to sell. But the way you're phrasing it, AJ, I think is interesting because it's almost like he doesn't want to sell to Harris, or like doesn't quite have everything that he wants. Could that just be the legal stuff, or like what are the other options on the table for why they haven't signed a more binding agreement yet? And it's something that Dan hasn't done versus, hey, I'll sign it. You guys just need to figure out the details on the legal side, which is what essentially the finance committee is doing right now.
Yeah, the one thing I told about today's meeting, there are a lot of lawyers involved in it. You know, I couldn't verify that there's a presentation, but lawyers for both sides, you know, for the Commanders, for Snyder on one side, the lawyers for Harris as well, and along with Jeff Pash and the other lawyers for the NFL, they're all involved in this. This is like this is why probably we're not getting a lot of news out of it. This is very, very legal, legalese, a lot of just like kind of getting the details out, and the details do matter, and the details could be holding it up. It's some of the, whether it's Mary Jo White report, whether it's who pays what, if the sale happens, if the sale closes at say middle of June, you know, and then there's some fines coming along from any of these investigation, who pays what. That's not identification. That's just kind of more of like, it happens here, you pay this, happens there, you pay that.
Right.
So that it's not going to be a blanket, you know, Josh Harris is not going to want to start this franchise having to have Dan Snyder to pay for it's not good PR, and having to pay for anything that happened while Snyder was the owner. You know, there's no appetite for that. You know, and there's appetite for the NFL for having Harris to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons why the report from that's why one of the reasons why it may not be released for many more months is because that report could kind of curtail the whole like, oh, we have a new owner, a new era, and blah blah blah, and then this comes out right after, and we're talking about Dan Snyder again. So that's like part of it. I think there's a lot of things going on. A lot of us were for PR, but a lot of this right now is just little things that have to get solved. And we're talking about over $6 billion. There's a lot of things, especially if there was a report that that Harris would pay a little under $5.8 billion now, and then come up with the rest in a couple of years. There's so many things like that. You know, those are little details that can bog down a process.
Right. So AJ Perez, Front Office Sports, is with us, and that was the last thing I wanted to ask you about, pursuant to this, at least that I can think of. Sometimes I say that, AJ, and then 4 more questions come to mind. So buckle up. Who knows how long we're here? But specifically that that $5.8 billion number, because we'd heard like some people were reporting 5.8, some people were reporting 6.05. 6.05 number seems to have won out, but apparently part of this is Dan might actually loan Josh Harris some money up front. How does that work? Because I've heard multiple theories on that. One is that some of that money could be fine, whatever, dependent. That hey, we're gonna play 5.8 up front, but if you we accrue fines, like we're gonna subtract that from your allowance basically, and then at X date we'll pay the rest. Also, it would make sense on just a pure financial level. Like this team is going to be set up to make more money the second Dan's gone. So, hey, let us make some money, and then we'll pay you. So what have you heard as to why that might be allowed? And then also, what are kind of the larger – and actually, tell you what, let me stop the question there, and then we'll get to some of the larger, bigger dynamics at play as franchise prices continue to rise and why this might be a sign of things to come in the future. So, specific 5.8 number.
Yeah, that's one theory.
Now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one theory. I mean, you have $200 million or so to play with. If that's a lot of money. I don't think anything, and expects the fines to be that high unless the federal investigation comes back and nails some huge ass number to it. So it's going to be, it's pretty much, that is a good theory because 17 limited partners, has many billionaires in this club. He can afford to pay the 6.05 now. So I think that could be more on Josh Harris's side. Say maybe we're going to hold this back a little bit.
Yeah. So. And that's the other thing too. I'm surprised that there are any financing holes because, good God, this group is going to wind up worth like $30-40 billion potentially by the time it's done in all of their net worth. I mean, Schmidt's worth 18 on his own. The family from South America that just joined the bid. I realize that's a complicating thing now, too. By the way, for the background checks, once you get international bidders, that becomes harder to do. But their family net worth is 12.
He was born in. Yeah, he was born in New York, so it's not a big deal there. But yeah.
Okay, that helps. I know I saw one line in a story somewhere that there are international bidders, though somewhere else in the group. So maybe it's one of the other 12 people that haven't been identified yet. point is,
Yeah.
their net worth is
Could
very large. It is kind of surprising that there are these financial things that have to be figured out. But I think it does go to show, AJ, the complexity of the NFL's rules here. Is this the first of what sales are going to look like, or perhaps a sale that is caught in the middle ground between Tepper and the Walton family being able to pay cash as the last two to ever just buy a team because they got the money to do so, and the rising franchise values and the fact that they are running out of people to buy franchises? Like, are there going to have to be bigger rule changes in general? And is this actually not that specific to Josh Harris and Dan Snyder and all the complicating factors that are present and maybe not impacting it as much as we think?
Yeah, the NFL has been hesitant with private equity so far, but look, two of the last three owners, we got Harris, we had Tepper, private equity guys. So it's pretty much, we already have private equity in the NFL. That's the first step. Before they change that 30% cash rule, or 30% liquidity needed as part of a purchase, I think they're going to look into what every other league pretty much has done in the U.S. and allow limited partner investment by private equity. That would allow not only for new sales, but it also allows the current owners and co-owners around the league to cash out, because you have all these high valuations. That's great. How do you access that? We saw that with the co-owners. Capital fight there. They ended up getting almost $1 billion for 30%. Now look at what 30% is worth right now of this team. That's half. It's like less than half. This whole sale.
Right.
It's so there's things that need to be fixed around the NFL, but there's really this is going to go like this going forward. You're going to need 17, 18, 20 partners. You got up to 25 people in apartment, or one controlling owner and 24 others. We're going to see larger ownership groups if that rule's not changed. And these sales are going to take longer and longer. And you're already, with that 30% rule, it's pretty much, it's so prohibitive. It's not like guys like Brian Davis who can't afford it. It's a lot of people who have a lot of money, who actually have billions of dollars to be able to come in, and they have to want to own an NFL team. And that's a very small group.
Right. Bezos might be able to buy the Seahawks when they're up, but like after that, you're running out of rich dudes real fast. And not to mention, there's other things that you and others.
Yeah,
have
that was the
reported
first
on.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that the NFL wants to diversify its ownership group, right? And so if you want to get black owners, you want to get female owners, you want to get Asian owners, you want to get European owners, South American, but not just as part of groups, but as majority owners, you need to widen the base, because unfortunately, due to a lot of factors that we're not going to talk about right now on this particular radio show, the top 1% of the 1% is white men. And if the NFL actually is serious about that, there's going to have to be other rules that are changed. One, because you're even running out of white dudes, but you're certainly limiting the potential ownership pool for the future. AJ Perez, Front Office Sports, with us. Make sure you read his work, frontofficesports.co. AJ, thank you, sir. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk to you in an hour when you got more stuff from the owners' meetings. Probably not, but we look forward to reading your reporting then. We'll let you actually do your day job. See you, buddy. AJ Perez with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, more reaction to that, more reaction to the Athletics report that the Harris Group has a couple of issues with the bid and how the NFL is going to help them get through. But first, a look at what's trending.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Nats are in action this afternoon. NBA playoffs tonight. And you got the Milan Derby in Champions League. We'll start with the Nats, who are absolutely thrashing the Giants. They are up 8-1 in the bottom of the third inning. Josiah Gray throwing well so far. No one in particular for the Giants throwing well so far. Inter Milan scored 2 in the first 15 minutes. They are still up 2 on AC Milan in the second of the Champions League semifinals. This game ongoing, should be wrapping up here within the next hour. We'll keep you updated in what's trending. Yeah, there they are. Got the full scoreboard now. 85th minute, so should be done fairly soon. Inter up on AC Milan 2-0. Then, of course, tonight you got the NBA playoffs. Heat and Knicks. Miami takes the series with a win. Same for the Lakers. They face Golden State up 3-1. That's a 10 o'clock tip, both games on TNT. That's what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. show, Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. Always streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980. Shout out to Kate Jr. Said our segment with AJ, super interesting segment. AJ's very smart, very, very smart. We like having him on the show. Much appreciate him. So if you missed it, you can rewind on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980, or on the rewind feature in the free Odyssey app. Okay. The Athletic reports that, by the way, Mark Kessinger, the Athletic did not report that Mark Kessinger is going to join us at the top of the hour, but they could because it would be correct. Kesty, of course, long time play-by-play man for ESPN Radio. But the Athletic did report that there are some issues with the Harris bid that the NFL's Finance Committee are working through, and that it's a very unique bid. And I touched on this at the end with AJ, but the NFL is running into a problem. Kind of. For them, it's a problem. For me, it's a sign. I'm going to call it a sign. At some point, I hope that corporations stop being greedy. Chances are they're not going to. Because really, honestly, it's not their responsibility to. It's not their responsibility to their board or their shareholders to do anything but make them more money. That's why corporations exist in the eyes of many, and I would even say many reasonable people. I happen to think corporations should also have some kind of secondary responsibility to do good in the world. And, at the end of the day, corporations are made up of people, and hopefully they are actually making the people who work within them or for them, depending on your structure, making those people's lives better and the people that they impact. So in the NFL's case, right, you're this giant corporation, or if you're the team's case, you're these giant corporations. Hopefully you're actually caring about winning and putting a good product on the field and doing good in the community and making sure you're a good place to work and, doing the types of things that you're capable of because of your platform, rather than just how much money can we make? Because inherently that means you are trying to save money in certain places when you could be investing it and those kinds of things. But that's a larger philosophical discussion about economics. But and why I say it's a sign that, hey, the NFL, you might be reaching a ceiling here. They don't see it that way. Their job is to move because they see their job to make money. And the issue then, through their lens, issue through their lens, is that they're running out of rich people. And Josh Harris is worth a lot of money. Mitchell Rales is worth a lot of money. Magic Johnson is worth not as much as those two, but a bleep ton of money. Add in some of the other names and some of the other known limited partners, and we're talking about $30-40 billion worth of net worth here. But that doesn't mean that all those assets, all that net worth is anywhere close to liquid, meaning actually available in cash. And because NFL prices, the prices for teams and sports teams in general are now at a point that they're $6-7 billion will be probably the next two major sales, the Commanders and Manchester United over in the English Premier League. There's just not a lot of people running around with $2.8 or $2 billion or $2.5 billion to hit a 30% liquidity threshold. And so the league is having to do things like grant debt waivers, grant special rules around the liquidity, letting, hey, you can't leverage this thing, but you can leverage that if you were to default on your loans. So there's a lot of questions, and with Harris specifically, because part of the things he wants to leverage are his other professional sports franchises, which I'm sure like the NBA probably isn't super psyched about, or the NHL probably isn't super psyched about, or the EPL isn't super psyched about if he wants to use Crystal Palace. Like, there are real questions here about how this gets done. And I think the simplest path forward is the Finance Committee is probably going to bend some rules around debt waivers and allow him to take on a little bit more and loans. And then they're eventually, within the next 5 years, going to make those things rules so that next time they don't have to bend them. And that's probably smart because otherwise their pool of rich people is running extremely dry. When we get back, we're going to actually talk about not business. We're going to talk about real sports, not on the field, but on the court. NBA playoffs. Mark Kestecher, he's calling Lakers-Warriors tonight. He had previously been calling the Sixers and Celtics series. We'll talk about both of those marquee matchups with Kesty next on the Team 9-8.
The Team
Feeling alive, pumped up, ready to go. Hour 2 on a Wednesday. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube. YouTube.com/@theteam980. 5 o'clock means it's time to elevate the expertise on this here radio program.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Time to bring in a great friend of the show, good friend of mine, Mark Kestisher from ESPN Radio, their lead play-by-play game caller, calling the NBA Finals the past bunch of years, got Warriors, Lakers tonight. Kesty, how are you, my friend?
Craig, good to be on with you. I need some of your enthusiasm. I got 5 more hours to go till tip-off. It's interminable.
A nap could probably kill a couple of it and help with your energy later. That's my advice.
That's great advice. I do have to remember to set the alarm on my phone. That's a recurring nightmare that I believe happened to our pal Adam Amin once.
Oh,
Took
no.
the nap, and all of a sudden people are knocking at the door like, hey, the game tips in 45 minutes. Let's go.
Wait, are you serious? I have to ask him about that story.
Ask him about that. I'm pretty sure it was Adam during one of the ESPN Radio playoff series. Took the old nap. I've done that a few times where I said, I'm just putting my head on the pillow for a few moments. And then fortunately I woke up and I think it was winter too. So it's 5 o'clock and it's pitch black. And I have no idea if I've been sleeping for 15 minutes or for 15 hours and was glad I didn't miss the game.
That's truly the nightmare. You know that feeling when it's just like, I feel a little too comfortable right now. I'm terrible. What time is it? That is bad. Wow, I'm gonna have to ask Adam about that pretty immediately.
Ask him about that. See
Yeah.
if it's true. That could be urban legend. I want to know if that's myth or reality. You find out for me.
Okay, I will report back. As for the topic of discussion that people actually want to hear about, I don't know. Adam Amin's napping, pretty interesting. Let's start off with Celtics, with the Celtics and Sixers. You called the first 4 games of that series, watched Game 5 last night, as you're obviously out on the West Coast getting ready for the game that you're calling tonight. But as that series has progressed, I think it's been really interesting to watch Joel Embiid's health progress, and then obviously has his best game of the series with 33 points last night. But as you're calling the first 4, like, what's the feel of the series as the Sixers find a way to play truly without him in the first couple, and then with a compromised, knee-braced version of him, and still split those games 2-2?
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, the first 4 games, if they don't have those 2 turn-back-the-clock performances from James Harden, they're probably cooked in this series. And everybody has dissected ad nauseum what the Celtics did or did not do at the end of regulation and overtime in Game 4 on Sunday. And that's going to likely turn out to be, the crux in the series where it all changed if Boston can't come back and win the next couple of games, is that they just did not execute down the stretch. Boston did not execute down the stretch. Should he have called a timeout? Should he have not have called timeout? Should Tatum have gotten the offense going a little faster? And all the while, while Harden gave them 2 transcendent performances in those 2 games, I think it allowed, Joel to continue to get a little healthier. And we saw that last night with his performance on both ends of the floor. He looked dog tired on Sunday. We're like 35 rows up in Philadelphia, but you could read the body language from where we were that, he was gassed. He was playing a ton of minutes heading into OT. So, to me, those first 4 games 1 and 4, and for Harden to have 40-plus in both, which I didn't think he was capable of anymore at this point of his career. Game 1 allowed Embiid to get 1 more game's rest, and he seems to be working himself into better shape. So that's kind of the 30,000-foot view, literally watching Game 5 yesterday.
So I actually pulled this stat I was going to use it later in the show, but I'll drop it here, and if people want to listen for the full 3 hours, then they get to hear it twice. But Harden last night, he only takes 8 shots. He goes 4 of 8. But in those 8 shots, he takes 4 mid-range shots. And I went back, Mark, and you called a lot of the Rockets-Warriors games back in the day when James was there. He used to average about, like, the 2017-2018 season was the one that I pulled. He averaged for that entire season 3 shots in the mid-range per game. Between 5 and 19 feet is what I'm considering mid-range too, by the way.
Yeah.
And he shot 4 last night. When you talk to the Sixers folks and you talk to the Celtics folks, what did they say about how he was able to get those 2 40-point games and how he has adapted to a James Harden that now still has the strength and quickness and craftiness but can't quite elevate like he used to?
Yeah, I think, look, they needed it from him. I think they asked it from him just being more aggressive. I mean, if you look at the biggest difference between the Houston James Harden and what we have this year, more so than age, because obviously age, you're going to hit your prime and then you're going to theoretically start going off that cliff, anyone else except for LeBron James. And on top of that, for James Harden was rules changes too. That's what I always think of is the stuff that the trips to the free throw line that he got, 12 times a game, 14 times a game. Those have been pared down so much. And you could see that frustration on him when he tries to drive to the basket and feigns contact and, tries to sell a foul. And the referees have been trained not to call those fouls anymore. And so to me, that's even a greater testament to what he was able to do in those 2 games, which was get to the rim like he did in the old days. And then obviously always, has the step back 3. So, for him to live in that mid-range is surprising, but effective yesterday. And it was made effective because of a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who, had himself a terrific game. When they have that third guy, and I love Maxey as a young player, but to me, that's when it opens your eyes and says, maybe this is championship quality team here. Do they have the depth, of the rest of the teams that are in the league right now, of the 8 teams still competing? They do. Most people don't. If you don't watch them day in and day out, outside of Harden, outside of Embiid, you don't get deep into the weeds with who's on Philadelphia roster. But they still need that third guy. And when Maxey plays like he played last night, that allows Harden to live more in the margins, which actually at this point of his career is not a bad spot.
No, definitely. And he's still, though, he doesn't score like he used to, but the assist numbers are still there. He's a playmaker. He's a point guard, and it's so impressive. Meanwhile, on the other side, like Tatum's numbers last night, the final ones are good. He just wasn't very efficient. And, there's been a lot of talk about potential friction, him and Jaylen Brown. That's been an ongoing ebb and flow for years. From being around it the last 4 games, what's the reality of where the Celtics are right now?
Yeah, I wish I could have been there last night for Game 5. There was definitely disappointment in Game 4 in Philadelphia on Sunday. But last night felt like a step back. Al Horford had no success, literally had 0 success in the game. I'm surprised at this point, they haven't gone to their bigger frontline lineup. I'd love to see a breakdown on the minutes, of Horford and Robert Williams on the floor at the same time. I dare say it might be very close to 0. I mean, they have not gone big at all in this entire series. And, like here in San Francisco, I'm sure we'll get to it in a little bit. But, to see what Steve Kerr may do as you get into a more desperation mode. And that's where Boston is. And it's a new coach in Joe Mazzulla, a young coach in Joe Mazzulla. So you think at some point there's going to have to be some kind of adjustment. That to me seems the easy adjustment that maybe, gets them a little more freedom. And again, it's 3-2. They're going on the road. Doc Rivers, we know, and I love Doc, but the last couple of times he's had a chance to close out series. They have not done that. And so they still have to get it done, even though they're going home and they'll have a boisterous crowd in Philadelphia. If you're Boston, can't play tense, right? I mean, you're expected to get to the NBA Finals, let alone the conference finals. But, leave that pressure to Philadelphia, who doesn't want to have to go back to Boston for a Game 7. So that's always, to me, the fascination when you get down to that last loss in the series, to see if the coach just kind of holds true to what he believes and what he does or makes slight adjustments.
One of the notes that I wrote down, Mark, is that the thing that makes Doc great, he's obviously had some pretty significant collapses, and the ability to get that final nail in the coffin has been an issue over his career. But like what Philly is running right now is just super simple and smart, and it's actually a nice contrast. As someone who picked Golden State and would like for them to win, it's not nice is not the exact word I'm looking for, but like it's a very apt contrast between what Golden State seems to be going through, where they have this thing that's working and they refuse to just run it into the ground. And I think that's one thing that's interesting about Doc is, hey, you know what brought us here? The Harden Embiid pick and roll. And then when Harden goes to the bench, it's the Maxey Embiid pick and roll. And then if we get some favorable matchups, we'll post Joel. And their ability to just stick with that and go to it time and time again, it obviously does mean your guys have to perform at a high level, but there isn't kind of an overcomplication of things, which I actually appreciate and I think served Boston well last night, or served Philly well last night.
Yeah, no, I get you on that 100%. And you know what? I didn't realize until I got a chance to hang around the team a little bit more the last week or so is the bond between Embiid and Harden, which, a lot of times we talk chemistry and, sometimes it's just media talk and it's not, truth. But, James Harden's been on a number of teams the last few years, and clearly that chemistry was never there in Brooklyn. And he goes to Philadelphia, and, we've been saying all year, he looks to be Harden in the best shape we've seen him in a number of years, because clearly was out of shape the last couple of years between Houston and Brooklyn. And so he's made a commitment to himself. And then I think you saw it manifested when Embiid won the Most Valuable Player trophy. They wanted that for him. I get the feeling that they really enjoy playing together. You just cited his assists per game. He's north of 10 and led the league in assists. So, he's committed to that playmaking role. Tobias Harris, no one even talks about, who, is an outstanding fourth man on that team. Like when the Warriors were in their heyday, you could have, your fourth best player, be someone who can contribute. Just last year, I don't know if you want to consider Andrew Wiggins, among that spot as the fourth best player, and he came in and delivered. So it's a luxury that some of these teams have. Philly has it to some degree, but I really think between the simplicity you discussed, between, two outstanding superstars, Embiid in his prime now and Harden just past prime, that are, together on a string and playing well, it's special. It's more special than I even realized, especially in a crowded East where Milwaukee was expected to contend to get to the NBA Finals. And, Boston was a close second. Nobody was talking about Philly. They were among the top three in the East, but you always considered them a kind of a distant third of those three teams.
No doubt. And Philly, by the way, really a good – and like playoffs are all about matchups, and no player averaged more points against the Celtics this year than Joel Embiid. And he got back to that average last night. He averaged 33 during the regular season, hits 33 last night. Sixers up 3-2. Mark Kestisher is our guest, ESPN Radio play-by-play man. He is calling Warriors and Lakers tonight after calling the first four of Sixers and Celtics. So, Mark, let's make that shift to Golden State tonight. You've called so many Warriors games over the last, 7-8 years now that you've been the lead guy calling the finals. You've been the voice of most of their championship run here. So when you see them in a situation that they almost haven't been in before, I don't think they were down 3-1 into Oklahoma City way back when, in the year where they ultimately blew their own 3-1 lead. But this is a type of hole they haven't been in. What's your best guess on kind of a wide swath on how they'll respond?
Yeah, they were in a 3-1 in the Toronto finals, too, in 19, but they were so injured. Kevin Durant went down, and they got it back to Oakland for Game 6, and then we remember Klay Thompson went down, and then we didn't see him for a couple of years. But you're right. Largely, they win Game 1s. Largely, they're the ones who have a chance to close out. They went 7 with Sacramento, which set them back. They gave up home court, losing Game 1 to the Lakers here, and the Lakers obviously are at their strongest point at any point in the season. I'm fascinated tonight. You expect Klay Thompson to have a bounce-back game. I mean, 9 points in a playoff game is not what you expect from Klay Thompson in any game, and that's what he had in Los Angeles in Game 4. Curry's been the constant. The depth of the Lakers, between getting healthier and the trades they've made at the deadline have made them formidable. And what's been the biggest problem for the Warriors this year, before advancing to round 2 of the playoffs, and it was the younger second team that, you expected them to kind of take that step forward. The Jonathan Kumingas, who's out of the rotation here in the postseason. They acquired Dante DiVincenzo. They've had Jordan Poole. Poole has been a zero in this series. So the depth advantage, when you look at it through 4 games, is clearly in favor of Los Angeles. So to me, you're back home where the Warriors have been, virtually unbeatable this season. I think they have lost maybe 10 games at home. That includes Game 1 to the Lakers in this series. But who's going to step up and help Steph Curry? Because he's going to be good. I assume Klay Thompson is going to have a big game tonight. And if he does, to me, that spells the big deciding factor. And then 1A is going to be the minutes that LeBron and AD played in L.A. in Game 4, both north of 40. You got 2 games to play with. You got home court for Game 6. It'll be fascinating to see the chess match here between Darvin Ham and Steve Kerr regarding score, time, waving the white flag and preparing yourself as best for Game 6. And also to see if Steve Kerr makes some lineup adjustments, because he has kind of fiddled with it here, I think, 3 times in the first 4 games of the series. We'll see if he makes another adjustment, because they really haven't had any answer for Anthony Davis in 3 of the 4 games.
Yeah, speaking of, with Poole specifically, I go back and forth on this. Obviously, Kerr's got a lot more information than we do. I don't know if you've had the chance to talk to him yet since you've been out there, so I don't know if you have any more information than I do on this. But I struggle as an analyst to go, you play Poole, you don't. Part of me says you have to, and you hope that he finally just turns it around and, maybe even the law of averages hits and he goes absolutely bananas for a game and all of a sudden his confidence is back and then you're in business. Part of me says this dude's so shot that I would just not even mess with it and I wouldn't play him at all. What do you have any, whether it's information or just, your best guess on what they do with Jordan Poole tonight, who only played, by the way, 10 minutes in Game 4?
Yeah, surprising line. We haven't, PJ, Carlissimo, and myself, we're heading over to the arena in a couple of hours. We'll meet with both head coaches pregame, both prefer pregame meetings. So we haven't spoken with Steve, and we're kind of parachuting in for Game 5. But my best read is, knowing Steve, and I don't know him that well. Obviously, we've covered him for many years as coach of the Warriors for 9 years now, and have had a chance to be in his office many times for the length of, series that we've covered. I can't imagine him giving up on Jordan Poole as rough as it has looked this series in particular. I mean, the shot hasn't been there. The production hasn't been there. The team as a whole, obviously, dropping 3 out of 4 in the series. I have to imagine that he gets his normal rotation in the first half. And then, like you said, maybe a couple go in. Maybe he sees 1 or 2 go in and it changes everything, and that changes, the whole series for the Warriors, because Poole has been an important part, of this team the last couple of years. Off the bench, when Curry's hurt, obviously, it was no fault of his own, but, when Draymond punched him in preseason, that may have set off ultimately when this is all said and done. If they go down in 5 or 6 games, we'll start writing all the narratives, and it's start with that. And then we're going to figure out, kind of what the real story is behind the scenes of the last few months, of if there was any discord or resentment or whatever, that's all to be written. But for the game tonight, I figure you got to give him a chance. And the same thing happens, like Steve Kerr did in Game 4. If he sees a better opportunity, Moses Moody is a guy, if you're not paying attention to, the Warriors or pro basketball, you really don't know anything about, but they trust him. He's young. He's only a couple of years out of Arkansas. He got some rotational minutes in important games in the postseason last year. Really wasn't a huge part of the bench during the regular season this year. But everyone tells me at 20 years of age, he's almost like a 28, 29-year-old. He's way ahead of his years, very smart basketball IQ, so they trust him. and they will throw him into a game if Jordan Poole is, not effective. So that would be my guess without hearing from Steve that, you're going to see Poole get an opportunity. But is it a short leash like it was in Game 4? I guess when you're down 3-1, the answer is probably
Yeah, definitely. And you do wonder if, Kuminga is an athlete. Does he get some minutes tonight? Finally, he hasn't played all series, but it seems like there's a trust issue there. But, Mark, I got two more questions for you, and I'll start with this one. The Warriors for years have had this strength in numbers mantra, and what's been so great about them is the ability to play different guys, get contributions from different guys, all of that, and it's worked for them around Curry at the center of the ecosystem. The one thing that's worked for them in this series is when Curry is just relentlessly attacked, kind of put the game in his own hands and pulled Anthony Davis into pick-and-roll situations to get him away from the basket. And that has opened up some stuff for others, but it's mainly opened things up for Steph to get downhill and take a different profile of shots than he has made his career off of, the threes and the layups, more mid-range. And then he obviously has been able to get to the rim some, uncharacteristically missed a bunch at the rim in Game 4. But in question form, my question for you is, can they, is it in the Warriors to get away from their DNA of sharing the ball and doing all the things that have made them great for so long and just say, for us to win this series, we're going to have to do this one thing relentlessly for 3 straight games if we get the opportunity to play 3 straight games? Or are they still going to try and get the ball in Klay Thompson's hands and let him take some questionable shots and do the kinds of things that have worked out for them over the course of this run?
Yeah, it's a great question. It really is. And I think they're going to stay to their DNA, if I'm to guess. I think that they're going to look, it's caused turnovers, it's caused bad shots, but you have two of the great bad shot artists in NBA history, because they do take great shots in Curry and Thompson. If you believe in the best shooting backcourt in the history of the NBA, and I do, they are it. So I think they go to that model, but I think your point is well taken, because what's the problem in the series? And the problem is Anthony Davis clogging the middle. And how do we get him out of there? And, look, all season long, they have a fifth guy on the team, Kevon Looney, who, has been brilliant in his role. But this is not the series for him, clearly, because they've gone away from him since Game 1. You mentioned Jonathan Kuminga, who's got some size and is an athlete as well. But they may find that if those guys aren't going to hit shots, I don't worry about Steph. They are different, but he can adapt. He'll get enough, and he could still play make in addition to scoring 30 points. But if they can't get the requisite offense, like we saw in the fourth quarter the other night, they're going to have to try to change it up and maybe see even more pick and rolls than we saw, just to try to get AD out of the lane for an opportunity to score there. And Steve and his assistants are incredibly intelligent, and I'm sure they've been, watching video and coming up with all different strategies tonight, down 3-1 to see how they could break it open. And maybe they attack AD and see if they can get some foul trouble there. So, it's all a fascinating chess match, but I think a very long-winded answer to your question is they've been doing this for too long. I can't see them going away from it now.
That was almost as long-winded as my question in the first place, but I think I still had you beat.
I wanted to go Bill Walton on you there, but I ran out of steam.
This is a true story. I once in a radio interview introduced myself to Bill. We were live on set at the Final Four at the Fan Fest. I said, "Hi, Bill." I was doing a show with my old pal Landry Locker. I said, "Hi, Bill. Nice to meet you. I'm Craig. This is Landry." I didn't say another word for almost 12 minutes.
Well, to add to that story, not that particular one, but I remember hosting an NBA pregame show 3 old studios ago in Bristol, Connecticut. And the one button I had access to was to reset the timer. And so I did an interview with Bill that was supposed to fit in about a 4-minute window. And we figured, we can edit this. Just ask 5 or 6 questions. I think any of his answers were less than 9 minutes, each one of them. And one might have topped out at 14. And whoever had to edit that interview, God bless them. I hope they won some kind of an award in radio, a Marconi or something, because that's anyone who's had to work with Bill, it is not easy because it goes from one subject to the next, and you take one away, and the rest of it doesn't make sense.
Well, Mark, we've got to go and talk about. All right. Last question for you is a vibe check. I don't think you were calling the finals in 2014, the last year that LeBron was in Miami, but you were around the finals doing the studio hosting, I believe, at that time. And
Correct.
That series, I always remember just like LeBron was at the peak of his powers. That was plainly obvious. It was also plainly obvious that everyone else on the Heat was more or less dead. They were done. That unit was done. It was time to move on. And ultimately, LeBron did. He goes back to Cleveland that offseason. Is there any vibe similar to that with Golden State now, that this group might finally, and even if they keep like the core three together, but like they might need a major change up because it's kind of Steph and then what else? Like that to me is the best parallel I can draw, Mark, in terms of what it feels like from the outside, being around it when you've called regular season games and now as you prepare for this game tonight. Is there any similar vibe to that 2014 Miami squad?
I think if there's a vibe around the media, yes. The vibe I get from the team is a no, but that's also with some question mark there because, the man who largely has put it all together, Bob Myers, the GM, we don't know if he's coming back next year.
Great point.
But everybody's under contract. Steph has a long contract. Clay's got another year left next season. Wiggins has another year left. Draymond has a player option I can't imagine that he's going to bounce out of. It's $27 million. Poole has a large 9-figure extension that's going to begin next year. And then, the rest of the parts, you can kind of wheel around and see. But it's fascinating in that, there could Draymond be done here? Even if he wants to opt in, maybe they move him. I don't know if they can move Jordan Poole now at that large contract that's coming, even though he's only 23 years old. And again, who would be the general manager, the next general manager who comes back? So I think they're all valid questions. You do sense, and we sensed it last year. We sensed it before the championship last year. We thought the dynasty was over. Could Klay Thompson ever come back and be anything like himself? You would have probably said, I don't know. And, they were able to get another championship out of it. So it revived it. But this year's been such a slog that I think it leads to all the questions. As much as the end of the season put them in position to stay out of the play-in, as much as, they beat a very good upstart Sacramento team and won Game 7 on the road with a 50-point game from Steph Curry, the question still lies there is how much breath is left in the dynasty. When I look at the books, I say the window's probably open for one more year, but if it ends in 5 on their home floor against the Lakers, who were 13th at one point, at the All-Star break, I think all those questions ring a lot louder.
No doubt about it. And there's also a chance that Draymond has a perfectly Draymond 10, 10, and 10 triple-double tonight. Klay hits 8 threes. Steph has 40. And this question feels very dumb tomorrow. Mark Cash.
And I already booked a flight to Los Angeles, too, so I feel like I've cheated. I'm not supposed to book any flights until we know where we're going. But I figured, you know what?
If the Lakers win,
I feel like there's going to be a Game 6.
Yeah, if the Lakers win tonight, just go have a day on the beach.
That sounds good. I don't think my wife would like to hear that, but I approve. Yes.
Okay. Well, she doesn't have to know unless she's she is possibly a listener to the show. I don't know.
She's a big Craig Hoffman fan, so it's quite possibly that she was the one. I don't know if you heard any beeping, but someone was trying to call me in the middle of the interview. Could have been her.
We had Spiro Ditas on the other night, and all of a sudden the other day, and all of a sudden his hotel phone was ringing, and he thought it was his wife trying to hunt him down. So it just
there's nothing worse in this age of using our cell phones that we've given up on landlines. When they call you to tell you that we're sorry, we can't get that iron you requested 24 hours later in the middle of your interview. Yeah. My favorite.
Excellent. Well, we avoided that, Mark. Thanks so much for the time, as always, sir, and we'll talk to you here in the next couple of weeks as the playoffs continue.
All right, Craig. Always great catching up with you.
Indeed. Mark Kestisher, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Anthony, we are so late on the clock. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more NBA playoffs. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be until we're going to get back, but we're going to make it as quick as possible. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Last chance to leave a comment on any one of our videos, either on the Team 980 or at Craig Hoffman, because never read the comments. Our weekly staple is coming up at 6 o'clock, and I am literally selecting the comments in the commercial breaks right now. So I got 2 more commercial breaks, which means you have 2 more commercial breaks to get your comments in. Real quick here, short segment, and then we'll come back with some more NBA playoff analysis in the next one. I want to talk about Suns Nuggets last night. We'll talk about Celtics Sixers in a second. The reason we can do the Suns Nuggets stuff quick, Anthony, is because ain't a lot to talk about from this game. This was a general ass kicking for an entire half. That half was the second half, and the Nuggets were the ones doing the kicking. This game really came down in the first half to who was making and who was missing shots. I thought it was interesting that with Point Book playing so well and Chris Paul continuing to be out, that Monty Williams continues to start campaign, who is not having a particularly good series. I would just embrace Point Book and get some of the other guys like your Landry Shamits on the floor, which he did start the second half, but he started it with Payne. I just think it's really fascinating. Like, you have this chance to get an extra shooter out there. And I know Payne's like a good shooter, but I'd rather have like Book playing point guard, Shamit, who's a little better defensively, and is obviously a very streaky shooter who just had a good game. And then maybe you get the chance to leave Josh Okogie out there and you get a little more defensive presence. But alas, they didn't. And then as they're scrambling around in an early transition, both teams looking to run, Michael Porter Jr. gets this wide open 3, and he had no hesitation, just stepped up, laced it. And I actually, Anthony, I noted it at the time as I was watching this game back to take all my notes. Because I will admit, as usual, because this was a 10 o'clock game, I did not watch this game live. Was able to watch it back today. And as I did not know kind of the game flow and how it was going to play out. I knew the Suns had won, but I went, Porter Jr. getting an early 3 is good. Little did I know that was the first of 4 he would hit in the first quarter. And once that got started, obviously the Nuggets built up a lead, but then they went cold, and the Suns actually got back in this to where it was a close game at halftime. And that's where everything went horribly wrong now, didn't it, for the old Suns? I thought it was weird. They kind of came out and tried to be chippy in the second half, and I just feel like the Suns are not a tough team. Like, Booker's got some toughness to him. Durant kind of does, but, like, toughness isn't the first word you're going to think of with Kevin Durant, versus, like, Aaron Gordon's a dude. Like, Nikola Jokic, not a dude you mess with. Like, all don't want to see him in an alley team, Nikola Jokic. Because nice dude, can have a lot of fun. If he gets mad, I don't want to be in his way. And it seemed like they almost ticked the Nuggets off to start the second half, and then it was just on. They ramped up defensively. Booker had a couple possessions where Gordon was guarding him, and that kind of messed with his rhythm. He then, I think he rolled his ankle or something at one point. He just was hobbling all of a sudden. And I guess, like, my big takeaway from this game, Anthony, is the Suns are not built to win playoff games against a team of the Nuggets caliber unless Booker and Durant have great nights. Like, Booker had a good night. Durant had 20-something, like 26, 28, 11, and 7. But, like, that's not enough. They need one of those guys to have 40, one of those guys to have 30. They need to do it efficiently, and then they need help. And realistically, that's not going to happen 4 times in 7 games against the Nuggets, especially when 4 of them are on the road. And I just think that the Suns are cooked in this series, even if their cookedness doesn't show up until Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think yesterday we just saw the Nuggets objectively just the better team. Again, you look at the 2 games that the Suns won, Kevin Durant and D-Book playing out of this world, and I don't know if you can consistently do that night in and night out for, a best-of-7 game series. So I just, we just saw the Suns come back down to earth. D-Book, he was shooting 80% from the field for 2 straight games, dropping 30 and 40. respectively. So I think they were just due, to be honest. I think the Nuggets, they went out and they played, Nuggets style, of offense, or just in general.
A lot of ball movement, got the tempo
Yep.
up, playing through Jokic and Murray. Like, it was impressive. And that's the thing, right? The games the Nuggets have won have been double-digit victories. It took all of that God mode stuff from Booker and, to an extent, Durant for the Suns to win close games down the stretch by single digits. That tells you the Nuggets are the better basketball team.
And their bench also showed up.
Yeah.
Bruce Brown went out there, played well. Christian Brown, he only had 5 points, but all the other things that are not in the stat book, he left out there on the floor. He took a couple of charges. He played some solid defense. So I just think the role players, the people that Jokic like to use to get involved with the game and things of that nature, they stepped up, they showed out. And you already talked about Michael Porter. They need more of that if they're really going to make a run.
I just had a thought. What's Chris Paul's contract?
He signed a 3-year, $120 million deal a couple of years ago.
Yeah, hold on.
I think he has one more year left on this deal.
I think so too, which all of a sudden gives me an idea. Hold on. What do you think I'm doing?
Is it possible for us to trade Bradley Beal?
Yeah. For Chris Paul, try this trade. This trade failed. Where's the money? Suns are over the luxury tax threshold, the incoming salaries. Okay, so hold on. I need to add Chris Paul and give me we'll take Landry Shamet.
Mm-hmm.
Try that trade. Trade failed. Good gracious.
Give
Adjust
us
trade.
Ayton.
I'm like, am I going to have to do DeAndre Ayton? Take away.
He doesn't want to be there anyway.
I know he doesn't. God, this trade failed. Wizards are over the luxury. So, but there is a version of this that would work. If you add in Monte is going to be too much. What's the number right now? 50. Actually, Monte is probably the perfect guy. Yeah. Bang. Ayton and Chris Paul for Beal and Morris. 1 year of Chris Paul comes in, helps set the culture. You're not going to win a lot of basketball games. You got Ayton, who you could potentially flip again. They get Beal. They get another score. I think they probably don't want it.
I don't think Chris Paul will want that. I think he would ask to be bought out, actually.
Fine. If it gets them off the Beal contract, are you bleeping kidding me?
Yep.
Done. I just don't think that's what Phoenix needs. I think a third scorer is part of what they need, but I think they need depth more than they need a third scorer.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Having another supermax level player is not the way you're going to build depth, especially as it becomes more punitive to be a tax team. Okay, we'll talk about the Celtics and Sixers when we get back. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, I think we're just going to spend the whole month of June on the trade machine. That's just going to be the show for 3 hours a day. We're just gonna pull up the NBA trade machine and try to find Beal trades.
So usually, the Commanders, when we go into the offseason, our number one objective recently have been the quarterback situation. For the Wizards, are you saying getting Bradley Beal off of our books is the number one thing for the Wizards offseason?
Yeah. Because how are you going to,
can't do anything else.
How are you going to change the organizational culture? How are you going to do anything? And again, I'm not trying to just push Brad out of town for the sake of pushing him out of town because I think he's a bad dude or a bad basketball player. It's just there's a realistic ceiling with him here, and they need to start over. And you can't start over unless you start over. So, yes, getting Bradley Beal out of here, sorry to be so dismissive, Brad. It's nothing personal. It's professional. Is the number one priority for the Wizards this offseason. The problem is he's got to agree to it because they gave him the no trade clause, which was preposterously stupid. Would you trade for Jordan Poole, by the way?
No. Granted, if it helps get Bill off the books, yes, but I wouldn't want him. I think he's a bad teammate. I see him chirping at his coaches. I see him chirping at his teammates. It's just like, dude, good gracious. I don't know. I don't really like it.
Yeah, I have. Oh, this doesn't have his extension. Dang it.
We don't need a head case in our locker room, especially if we're trying to change our culture here. We don't need that.
Yeah, no, I agree. My thought was Wiggins and Poole for Beal, but I don't think.
I saw that. Apparently, it was Wiggins and Poole for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
I saw
Cowher was throwing that up. That's ridiculous. Yeah, if you're Golden State, you do that in a heartbeat.
Of course.
I think it's the Wiggins Poole for Beal is far more interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's what do you make of Poole? Anyway, got plenty of time for that. All right, let's talk, speaking of the Celtics, let's talk about that game real quick, and then never read the comments coming up at the top of the hour. So, to me, this comes down to the best player in the series theory, which in most NBA series, the best player in the series wins. And quickly, Joel Embiid is becoming the best player in the series. Now, if you look at their raw stats last night, Tatum has 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Embiid has 33, 7 rebounds, 4 blocks. But Embiid does it on 10 of 23 shooting and 3 of 7 from 3, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. 33 points in a super efficient, ruthless manner, monster defensive performance. While Tatum gets 36, but he takes 27 shots to do it. He's 3 of 11 from 3, and a guy who shoots high 80s free throw percentage is only 11 of 13 from the line. So, I guess 11, 13 is still pretty high percentage. So, good job from the line, Jason Tatum. But that is too many shots to score that amount of points. If you're going to take 27 shots, you need to be scoring 40, 42, 44 points, something in that range, to really make that worth it. And that ultimately is the kind of thing that decides the game. Is Embiid was ruthlessly efficient. He had a ton of jump shots, and he was an excellent screener. I would love to know his screen assist numbers from last night because he freed up Maxey a ton. And Maxey obviously goes for 30 last night as well, and that is a monster difference in the game. And you look at it, it's simple why, too. The shot quality off pick and roll for Philly was way too easy. How often did it feel like the ball handler would come off a screen and just be able to rise up with no hand in their face, or a late, kind of lazy, or what I would call a regular season contest all the time? And Embiid had a ton of looks like that. Maxey had a ton of looks like that. Harden had a couple. You just had look after look after look. That's relatively, by NBA playoff standards, a clean look. And as a result, they shoot really well from the field. They're super efficient, and they win the game. Tobias Harris, also awesome last night. He took the right shots and made them. 16 points on 17 of 10 shooting. I also had 11 boards. And I said this earlier in the show. Embiid averaged 33 during the regular season against Boston. It's the most that they gave up to any individual player. Last night, Anthony, what's he score? 33.
Man, I was so surprised the 76ers went into Boston and stole this one. I think the Celtics are in trouble going back to Philly. But ultimately, I just saw Joe Mazzulla sort of get out-coached. I don't think he did a good enough job, getting everyone involved. Al Horford, he was pretty much a non-factor.
He had 0 points.
Exactly. Derek White, where's he been all series long?
It's a bad series for him. He's such a good defender. Like, legitimately might get some votes, like third-place votes type of stuff for Defensive Player of the Year. I'd have to go back and check the actual numbers because I guess that's been announced, whether he did or not.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, excellent. Harden's a nightmare for him. James is just too damn big.
And I just think also just too much ISO basketball for Jason Tatum, honestly. So, again, I think that just goes back to the X's and O's from Joe Mazzulla, getting everybody involved, more ball movement, and then being able to execute from there because Philly in the half court, having Joel Embiid has been super impactful. You talked about his 4 blocks, but it's nothing easy, coming down in the paint. So he has to just, draw better ways to get his guys easier shots.
No doubt. And they just kept attacking the rim last night, which on some level is like, I guess, admirable, like commendable. But on some level, it's just dumb. Like, how many shots do you have to miss at the rim? How many does Embiid have to reject? How many does he have to affect before you realize all you're doing is just banging your head against the wall? They shot 17 of 32 inside of 11 feet. 17 of 32. That's 53%. For some reference, Philly also made 17 shots inside of 11 feet. They only took 26. That's 65%. And to me, what that says, Anthony, is not only are they taking, like, contested shots at the rim, but they're even stopping and taking a lot of, like, awkward distance shots before they get to the rim to try to avoid Embiid, and they're just missing them. So one of the things that I think they did really well last year was they had this, like, ability to get Jason Tatum the ball spaced out at the top of the key, and, like, he would operate from there. I think it's getting him the ball in the right spots, but then it's also hunting the matchups. It's like, can you play a smart Tatum pick and roll to get Maxey one-on-one on Tatum? Like, can you do stuff like that to try to create the matchups? And they just, Mazzulla, I think, is a really smart dude, but he's 34 years old, and he's going against Doc Rivers, who's been around the block a time or two, and it does seem like Doc is getting the better of him in this series. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we dive into the deepest, darkest parts of the internet. Actually, the comments aren't that bad on our site, but we do read them. It's Never Read the Comments next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show, final hour on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/at the Team 980. Thanks for joining us wherever you are, however you are, of course, on the radio too. If you have an HD radio, did you know you can go to 1067 HD2, get us in crystal clear digital audio high definition. Huh? Maybe you just learned something new. You can. Of course, 980 AM as well. The legacy signal, Anthony. The legacy signal. So each and every week, we make sure that we solicit feedback from you, our loyal, faithful listeners and viewers. We want to interact with you, even though we've been warned it's dangerous. You don't want to go in the comments section. Dad, don't read your replies. It's not good for you. But every single Wednesday, we just can't help ourselves. And what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read those comments, baby.
Yes, we do. Yes, sir. Yes, we do. Let's dive in, shall we? We start always now that we have our youtube.com/at the Team 980 channel with our comments from the Team 980. This one from Grego, huh? That's what his name is. Grego, huh? Hey, it's Grego, huh? Right on. I wonder if so the first set of comments are on the kind of group of segments we've done over the last week on the national media's narrative on Sam Howell and the Commanders. So that's where these are coming from. And Grego says, I wonder if the drop in rank is the difficulty of schedule. Last year, the NFC East had the easiest schedule in the league. Plus, we have an unknown offense. So from an outside perspective, I can understand why they think that's where we're at. But in all honesty, I think we have the potential to be a good team, potentially a double-digit win football team. And that's kind of where I'm at, too. I think it's too early to try to play the schedule game. By the way, schedule release tomorrow, starting at 7 here on the Team 980, brought to you by Old Ox Brewery. And you can go hang out with Linnell and Logan at Old Ox Brewery in Ashburn. Pew, 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 lasers, fireworks. Back to the take. You just don't know, right? If you get Denver early in the year, that seems like it'd probably be good. Denver late in the year could be an absolute dumpster fire for Denver. Could be really bad for the Commanders if all of a sudden Sean Payton fixes Russell Wilson and they are rolling and Cortland Sutton and Jared Jeudy look phenomenal and they just put it all together. Like, oh God, I don't want to see them. You know, we didn't know last year the Giants would be good. Turns out they were good, and the whole linchpin of the season turned on the fact that the Commanders couldn't beat the Giants. Didn't know the Eagles would be second best team in football all year. Will they be again? Sure seems like it. Maybe they'll be better. But could the Cowboys be worse? Definitely. It's too hard to predict that kind of stuff. Aaron Rodgers makes the Jets game far more challenging. Or does it? What if he's done? What if he's toast? What if he's cooked? What if he's injured? Like, you just don't know enough to play the schedule game. Here's what I do know. I know this defense should be pretty good. I know this offense should be schemed up to maximize weapons that I think are also pretty good. So if that's the case, and they were 8-1 last year, I do think they should be better this year. But, Anthony, I understand the national skepticism, and I understand not giving the Washington organization, given the last quarter century of history, any kind of, benefit of the doubt.
Hey, I'm all in favor of the national media writing us off because we ain't writing back. We're just going to go out there, and we're going to prove these people wrong, man.
Is that what the kids say nowadays? You can write me off, but I'm not going to write back?
Nah, that's more so what Gino said.
Oh, that's true. I was like, where's that from? Gino said it, but it sounds like a Drake lyric.
Yeah.
Is it a Drake lyric? It might be.
He might have incorporated in one of his songs, knowing him.
It sounds like a Drake lyric. All right. Along those same lines, Kevin Hardy says, you know what his name would be if he was from Boston, Anthony?
Harlan?
No, it's just Kevin Hardy. It's a good Boston name. Kevin Hardy says, Bleacher Report ranked our defense as number 4 overall post-draft, yet we're going to finish the bottom of the league, LOL. And that's kind of my thing, too. It just seems like the entire – and we did a full segment on this on Take Command with Kime earlier in the week. Like, Did y'all forget the defense is pretty good around here? And when it struggled early in the season last year, it was without Cam Curl and before Jamin Davis kind of figured out how to play NFL football at a high level. I don't anticipate that Jamin Davis forgot. And as far as we know, Cam Curl is going to be ready. If he gets hurt in training camp, okay, all bets are off. But I like the upgrades they made, Forbes and Martin, in the first 2 rounds. By the way, there's this fella named Chase Young that hopefully is going to come back and could turn this into a top 5, top 3 defense if he's a monster. But they didn't really lose anything defensively that they can't replace. Like Bobby McCain left. Okay. Obviously, William Jackson III left. When he did, they got better last year. So that's where my biggest issue of all these national rankings. And Logan and I today went into Mike Clay's quarterback rankings where he had the Commanders dead last, where he's got the wide receivers 11th. And like we picked some nits, and after looking at it, I have less gripes with the wide receiver than I do the quarterback. But at the end of the day, like when you tell me this team is going to be awful, when you tell me this team is going to be a 4-win team, I just don't get it based off the fact that at the very least their defense should be good. And they went 8-1 last year with what I think is going to be a worse defense than what they will have this year. And a better offense. Or like this year's offense is better. That's projection. But the defense part, you can never really tell year to year, but it certainly feels like they're going to be on the up. Then we get into what was certainly the most commented on video of the week, Anthony. Our friend Matt Miller. Matt was on with Linnell last weekend, and he made a comparison of Colt McCoy to Sam Howell. The full version of that quote we played on the segment that all these comments were left on. And I think it's important to also say that Matt said he doesn't have a great arm. Now, I have talked to Matt Miller since this happened, and I mentioned this in the segment. When Matt Miller said he doesn't have a great arm, he meant he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes' arm. He doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. He has a good arm. He really likes Sam Howell, thinks the arm is good, thinks there's other things that could prevent him from being a good starter in this league, but the arm strength is not one of them. And yet, here are the comments, Anthony. Here are the comments.
Buckle up.
From 703 Evol X, which sounds like a play call. We're running 703 Evol X, 703 Evol X, on two. You ready, Anthony?
Yes, sir.
All right, by the way, what were your stats this weekend in flag football?
Oh, I went crazy. I'm not going to lie. I had 2 touchdowns. I had a pick 6 on a 2-point conversion. I had like 4 or 5 flag pulls. I had a pretty good outing this week.
On 2, set, hut. Nicely done, sir. Got that plug in. So 703 Evol X says, why does he get a pass for this? He being Miller. This is his job, and he got the simplest of things incorrect. Sam Howell does not have a comparable arm to Colt McCoy, and it's absurd to try and backtrack now because he's justifiably being roasted for it. Except for he didn't say that, which is why he gets a pass. He doesn't need a pass because that's not what he said. Papi Rodriguez says, he literally said, and I quote, not great arm strength. Tell us what we got wrong. You got wrong the next part of the sentence where he said, but it's good. At least that's what he told me. So if he didn't perfectly articulate this in the clip that we played on the show from his interview with Linnell, who I know has also been defending Matt for the same exact reasons, not just to defend Matt. He is a good dude. I really like having him on the show. I think he's smart and I think he works hard. All those things are great, but I'm not going to defend a guy in a specific instance if he said something that's wrong. I'm just going to be like, hey, that was wrong. You missed. But like, I talked to Matt about this. I know what he thinks. He told me, yeah, what I meant was he doesn't have Mahomes' arm. He doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. And just because he can, get his feet underneath him and lace a ball 59 miles per hour into a pad doesn't mean that he's going to do that in a game all the time. Matt also told me that he thinks sometimes Howell, based off what he saw at UNC, the film breakdown, his actual job, he would get too much into his upper body in terms of relying on it for his throws. So when you're Patrick Mahomes and you can throw off platform anywhere and just sling a ball from any arm angle, that doesn't matter because you have such a freaking cannon that you can still get the adequate zip on any ball, whether your feet are on the ground, whether your body is upright sideways, or, there was that one throw in the Super Bowl where he was being tackled and I feel like he threw it submarine 45 yards in the air and hit Tyreek Hill in the face mask. Remember that one, Anthony?
He was basically laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Basically.
Sam Howell can't do that. That's a great arm. Sam Howell doesn't have a great arm if that is your definition of great. Now, I would say that I think we need to expand our definition of great, and what Mahomes and Allen have are like legendary arms, right? So if you want to argue about semantics, fine. But what he actually means is if great is Allen and Mahomes, he don't have that. That's fine. If Howell, who did have footwork issues at UNC, can clean up his footwork and consistently keep his base underneath him and do some of the stuff that he does do well on the run, his arm is going to be just fine. He's going to make great throws. But what all of you that are planning on tweeting Matt Miller every time Sam Howell throws a deep ball this year are missing is that you're wrong. Please don't do that. Don't be that person on the internet. You're the reason we call this segment Never Read the Comments. I am helping you understand right now if you think Matt misspoke and what I'm saying is different than what he said, okay, fine, but I'm telling you what he meant because I actually did this crazy thing and asked him. Most of the exchange, we did go in our DMs a little bit and extend our conversation, but most of that is public for you to read on Twitter. Go read it.
I understand you're letting everyone know not to DM and add Matt Miller. They're going to definitely add him. Zaire is still getting at and DM from Jamal Williams fans, like for the Hard Knocks situation that he had last year. He's still getting DM'd to this.
Again,
So
this
Matt
is
Miller
why we call
will.
the segment Never Read the Comments.
He will.
I'm asking you to read this particular comment, so to speak. Watch this video, and then don't be that guy on the internet. Thank you. This has been a PSA. Barry also commented on this. Barry's kind of a larger point that I want to make. He said, I'm sorry, but when you talk down on someone but then turn around and say, I hope they prove me wrong, it's a contradiction. Don't say it if you don't mean it. How does everyone put down this quarterback because he was picked in the 5th round? But you hear other people say if he was in the draft a year before, he will be a top 10 pick quarterback. Makes no sense to me. Barry, I'm sorry. This says more about you than it does about Matt Miller or anybody else. Let's take both parts of this. One, if you talk down on someone and then say, I hope they prove me wrong, it's a contradiction. No, it's not. When you're an analyst, your job is to call it like you see it. But that does not mean you wish ill on someone. If you think someone's bad, it doesn't mean you want them to be bad for the sake of you being right. Go ahead. I will happily be wrong if this person's actually good and successful. I can root for their success, but when asked for my objective opinion, tell you I don't think they're very good. That is literally what my job is. Very rarely there are players that I genuinely hope fail, and it's because I know or I've heard things about them that says, you don't deserve this spotlight of being a professional athlete. You're a bad person. The prime example being Deshaun Watson. I hope Deshaun Watson fails miserably as a football player because I don't think he should be playing football because of the things that he did. And again, before anyone goes, he wasn't found guilty, go look at what Deshaun Watson admitted to doing and then realize that he admitted to what is sexual assault. Thank you. Case closed. Moving on from that example. However, do I think plenty of players over the years were not going to be good, even though I like them as people? Sure. For instance, I got no problem with Bradley Beal. I think Brad's done a lot of great stuff in the community. No problem with Brad personally. Wish he'd come on the show. That's my only gripe with Brad at this time. However, do I think they can win a championship, they being the Wizards with him? No. Do I hope that he proves me wrong? Absolutely. Will I gladly eat all of the crow possibly bought by Brad's $252 million if the Wizards win a championship with Bradley Beal as their best player? Nom, 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 nom. Sign me up. I can hope the Wizards win while also objectively saying they're not a very good basketball team. Happens all the time. So yeah, Matt Miller likes Sam Howell as a dude. Has heard good things. Wants him to succeed. Doesn't think he will. That's fine. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Matt Miller will still have his job at ESPN because that is the nature of scouting. It is objective. Not everyone agrees. And as long as you're right often enough and you generally put in the work, which Matt does, then you get to keep doing your job, whether it's for a team or for a television network. As for the how does everyone put him down and say he was a fifth-round pick when people were saying he's a top 10 pick before, there are way too many pundits in this business that have made people think that changing your mind is a weakness. Skip Bayless still thinks LeBron James isn't very good. Is that actually true? No. But he says it on television because it gets him attention. You're allowed to change your mind. And by the way, if your job is actually to scout for a team, your job is to change your mind. If you get more data, then you change your mind. If you're like, wow, this thing tastes good, and you realize it's poisonous, you probably are going to decide not to eat it anymore. So yeah, when you get more information, you change your mind. That's how that works. And his junior year was not as good as his sophomore year. So that was why that changed on Sam Howell. And if you can't get that by now, then I really don't know what to tell you. Anything to add, Anthony?
Nope.
Okay, on to the next one. Brian says, by the way, I get a comment or comments every once in a while, when, especially now that we're doing the show live, and like sometimes I forget to change the camera. See, sometimes it's like, it's just me. And then sometimes it's like, oh, hello, look, there's Anthony. And sometimes I'll do a segment and then I'll just get on a rant and you'll be kind of sitting there like just nodding your head. And people are like, hey, man, you want to let your co-host talk? Just in case you're a YouTube viewer who watches this stuff on demand only and don't realize that we're a live radio show that broadcasts 3 hours a day, Anthony's the super producer of this show. He does an amazing job. I love to get his takes on things when we can, but it's my job to talk the most. That's just how it works. So you can save that comment. Anyway, point is, continuing to move on. This is it's a long comment from Brian, but I think it's really interesting. This is on the most recent edition of Take Command, a clip that I posted on my YouTube page at Craig Hoffman, that talks about how, specific to this offseason at quarterback, I don't know what the Commanders were supposed to do. Lamar Jackson wasn't actually available. Aaron Rodgers wasn't available to them. I guess they could have gone down like a Derek Carr route, but he also was a trade guy who was kind of controlling where he wanted to go, and I don't think he was particularly interested here. So there weren't a lot of options for the Commanders, nevertheless, one they wanted to pursue. And so Brian says, about 7 minutes in, Craig defends Ron by asking what move they should have made, i.e. what free agent or draft quarterback available to them should they have taken. It's a fair point, but we've been making that same point for 4 years. In 2020, no one would have criticized taking Chase over Herbert or Tua based on what we knew at the time. The next year, most locals, myself included, understood that trading up for Fields wasn't going to happen or would have paid the in-division tax to do it. Then last year, the quarterback crop was weak, and they went crazy on Wentz despite even casual fans knowing Wentz was cooked, and now they pass again. So basically, Ron has no plan. Ron is content to just sit back year after year and watch from his mediocre 7-8 win armchair as quarterbacks get selected above him. What I've been advocating to my friends for years now is that the Commanders need to trade draft capital into next year's draft so that they have the ammo to move up. Just sitting back and hoping isn't going to cut it. Maybe Howell works out. I hope he does. I like him, but he's a long shot. Ron and the two Martys don't have a plan. They're perennially short-term focused, and that's why this team will continue to be mediocre as long as they're in charge, unless they just get lucky and Sam breaks out. What's interesting, Anthony, is I agree with most of that. I do think the Chase Herbert / Tua thing is one that at the time you could have said, hey, you really need to think ahead here. Of course, the caveat was that they were inheriting Haskins and ownership was very invested in Haskins. And to an extent, they thought they could fix Dwayne. They quickly realized they couldn't. Okay, there goes that. Then you get into the next couple of years of bad ideas, not trading up, not doing enough. And I think the 21 year is valid, right? Should they have figured out just, hey, we're going to sacrifice a bunch of stuff, But the problem was they made the playoffs. And so they thought they were close. They think if we just get Ryan Fitzpatrick in here, we'll be fine. And actually, I endorsed that at the time. Obviously, horrendously did not work out. Last year is the one that I do not understand and will never understand. If you were going to play the long-term game, last year was the one to do it. Playing it with Carson Wentz was moronic. They also get unlucky in that it's the worst quarterback class in recent memory. Pickett's the only guy that goes in the first round. He probably only goes in the first round because there aren't guys like the ones in this year's class, nevertheless next year's class above him. He's worked out in Pittsburgh all right, but like, does anyone think he's actually like going to be a top 10 quarterback for a decade? No. And that's what you're looking for in the first round. And I guess the point I would counterpoint to Brian with is you can't create something out of nothing. You do have to take risks, and I think that's where they've gone wrong. But what exactly, like, my point still stands. I don't think Brian would argue with that. He sounds like a very reasonable person. You can't create something out of nothing, and I just don't know what the Commanders are supposed to create at the quarterback position other than what they have now, which is we took a really talented kid with a pick much later than we anticipated. Thank God we did. But like Brian said at the end of his comment, well, either Sam breaks out or it's the next people's problem to figure out. And honestly, for the general health of the organization, I actually think that's a great thing. So we'll see, I guess.
But why do we never get it right, though? I feel like
because it's hard, man.
It's never.
How many teams have it right?
I mean,
like
at least some teams have temporary success at the position.
Like, would you say the Giants have it right with Daniel Jones? They just spent $40 million on Daniel Jones. Do they have it right?
I would say it's
or have they just locked themselves into being a 10-win team at best if everything goes right?
Yeah.
And is that
at least they're contenders?
Sure. And like maybe they did. They spent a top 10 pick on a guy and, mixed results. Maybe it actually is working out before our eyes. But like the point is it's really hard. It took 4 years to think that, oh my God, actually Daniel Jones is worth signing to a long-term contract. They might have just wasted 4 years. But lo and behold, Brian Dable comes in and fixes him. How many we did this exercise today of kind of tiering all the quarterbacks in the league on the back of Mike Clay's rankings that had the Commanders somehow dead last. And you just realize, like, once you get past about the first 12, 13 teams, like Cousins, I actually drew the line at Goff, right? And Detroit is like actively looking to upgrade on Goff if they can, right? They draft Hooker this year, and there's a lot of talk they might have drafted a quarterback higher. Like, clearly they're not sold on Goff long term. But even if you include Goff, that's 13 teams that have quarterback, I would say, figured out, that their quarterback situation is good. And that includes the aforementioned Watson, who might turn out to be one of the biggest mistakes in NFL history based off football and contract alone if he plays like he did last year. Nevertheless, the public embarrassment part. But if you count Watson, you count Goff, you count Cousins, you count Prescott, you count like that caliber on top of like the top 8 dudes, you're like, yeah, them some dudes. That's still only 13. That's less than half the league. Why do we never get it right in Washington? Because it's bleeping hard. And the owner employed Bruce Allen, who screwed up the Kirk one.
Yeah, that too.
That too. So there's that. That is Never Read the Comments for this week. You can leave a comment on the Team 980 on any of our shows, any of our live shows, any of our which you can watch on demand anytime, or any of the highlights that we post, of course, on my page as well, where we post not only highlights from this show, but from Take Command as well. Make sure you are subscribed to the Team 980's YouTube page, to Craig Hoffman, the YouTube page, and to the fans' YouTube page for full episodes of Take Command. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, take a look at the playoff games tonight and ask, who are the 5 best playoff performers left in this year's NBA playoffs? It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up the show. Anthony, anything particularly fun you got circled for real things?
Yes. JJ Redick, he took over First Take again. And we have an hour opener that says we need raises. And JJ Redick, quite frankly, thinks he needs a raise as well.
Oh, well, did you hear that he might be getting one?
Yes, I actually did see that.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
Apparently, ESPN reporting that JJ interviewed in some form or fashion for the Raptors coaching job, which is definitely interesting. A guy who's never been on an NBA bench, but is super freaking smart. It does rub me, like, there's a little bit that rubs me the wrong way about that. But also there's a part of me that's like, that's kind of genius. Dude pays attention to the league. He's super locked in on a lot of details. He has made a concerted effort to talk to a lot of coaches and learn about coaching. And luckily for us, as like entertainment consumers, it's available for public consumption. In part of his podcast, he's done like a coaching series. Ironically, one of the more memorable ones that I listened to was with Nick Nurse, who he would be replacing if he got the job in Toronto. Yep. But it's just it's an interesting choice to say the least. Anyway, Anthony, you've been wanting to do this segment for a couple of days.
I have.
Who are the top 5 players left in these NBA playoffs? Let's go through the candidates first. I've got 11 guys that I can make some semblance of an argument for. And then I want your list because I think you've already made yours.
Yep.
In no particular order, Curry, Embiid, Booker, Butler, Jokic, Davis, James, Tatum, Brunson, Harden, Durant. Anybody else that we're missing? Like honorable mention, Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, if you wanted to put Jaylen Brown in there, I guess.
Realistically, he's not at that level, but like he's an all-star, so like if you're going to mention Jalen Brunson, we can mention Brown, although I think Brunson's got a significantly better argument. Julius Randle, I guess, probably should also get mentioned, but like no. Just no.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your list? And also, what's your criteria? Because this is playoff performers, right?
Yes, playoff performers this year. We're not talking about the regular season. We're talking about who's left right now in the playoffs.
Okay, so it's not necessarily just how you played in the playoffs this year. It's like the projecting forward as well. So it's not just like, hey, let's look at the numbers and see who's done the best. And that is, like, it's what we think they're capable of doing moving forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What's your list?
All right. So at 5.
Okay.
At 5, I have Anthony Davis.
Okay.
He's at 5. We already know the impact that he's had on the Lakers postseason thus far, and they're going to go as far as he goes.
Okay.
At 4, I have Stephen Curry. And yes, it might be a little surprising why he's that low, but it's because I have 3 other guys that I think have been performing better than Steph Curry. Yes, Steph Curry did have 50 points in a closeout Game 7 against the Kings, and he's played phenomenal.
Do you realize what his last game was?
He had a triple-double, right?
Yeah, with like 15 assists.
Yep. Fantastic.
And you got 3 dudes better than him.
Yes. Yes.
Can't wait to see who they are.
At 3, I got Mr. Triple-Double himself, Nikola Jokic. We just saw what he did yesterday. He tied or he passed? Who did he pass?
I don't know. I didn't get to the point where he passed him in the game because it was a 20-point game, and I was like, I think I've got what I need out of this one. So whenever the stat flashed up on the screen, I was
anyway, he has the most triple-doubles for a center in NBA history. And, again, the Nuggets are looking fantastic. I think they're going to end up advancing to the Western Conference Finals.
Agreed.
At 2, I have Devin Booker. And even though he did not have the game that everybody, expected him to have, he still has been performing at a phenomenal rate this postseason.
Sure has. He's great.
He's getting compared to Jordan and things of that nature. And at 1, I have Jimmy Butler. The guy that sent – I don't know why you're doing that, Craig. Jimmy Butler is having a hell of a playoffs. He packed the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, the number 1 overall team in the league, the Milwaukee Bucks. He sent them home in 5, and he's about to do the same to the New York Knicks tonight, and it's all been on his back. I have to put him one. I have to.
I don't disagree that he's been top 5 and is in general a top 5 playoff performer. This is why I wanted to clarify the assignment. This is not a resume contest. This is, hey, we're picking teams.
Yep.
And you're telling me with all the dudes
Straight face.
that we just listed, the 11 guys that we listed.
Yep.
If we're picking a player for the rest of the playoffs to start our team, you're picking Jimmy Butler.
Yes. He impacts winning so much defensively,
Sure
offensively. He does it all. He lays it out there on the line every night.
Sure does, which is why he's number
winner.
5 on my list.
He's a winner, though, Craig. He's a winner.
He is.
Yes.
He is.
Okay.
With no titles to his name.
You're right, but he got there.
He did. And
He
they
got
might damn well mess around and get back there.
Yep.
Like, Jimmy Butler is one of the great stories in NBA history, probably one of the most underrated guys in NBA history. The way he elevates in the postseason is incredible. He's awesome. I love Jimmy Butler so much. I love watching him play. He can do seemingly anything. The way he always rises to the moment is great, and that's why I got him at number 5.
And he's doing it with less, though, Craig. He doesn't have another top 5 player in the league like Devin Booker.
Okay.
He doesn't have the depth that the Nuggets have. He doesn't have phenomenal shooters like Steph Curry does. Anthony Davis, he doesn't have a LeBron James. He has what he has, and he makes the most of it. And again, he sent home the Milwaukee Bucks.
Giannis was hurt for the majority of that series, but
2 games. 2 games.
Yeah, but you don't come back and you're just you.
Yeah, but the Milwaukee Bucks also have so much depth that I think they can't exist without Jimmy Butler. And when he did come back, Giannis wasn't checking him. Giannis wasn't doing anything.
Like, I realize all of this. Jimmy's great. And I want to really underscore this, that Jimmy's great. That's why he's number 5 on my list.
Okay.
Number 4 is Book. If you're going pure resume, I think he's based off, if you stop now, especially if you stop before last night, Book is 1. He's had literally one of the best playoff stretches that we've ever seen. But if I'm picking sides, I'm going to take these 3 other guys before I take Book for the rest of the playoffs. And that's not just because I think he's got 1 or 2 more games to play before the Nuggets knock him out, but just in general, like, he's awesome, but I like these other guys more. 3 is, I agree with you, is Jokic. 2 is a guy that you didn't even have on your list, which is Joel Embiid, the MVP of the bleeping league, who last night had 33 points on like 17. What was his numbers? I have them written down. 33 points on
23 shots.
23 shots, 4 blocks, like, can hit threes. Incredible. Give me Embiid. He's playing like the MVP that he is. And then number 1, Steph. Because he's still the best. Like, him and Giannis are the 2 best players on the planet currently. LeBron has finally fallen off to the point that he is not here. If AD is the hardest one for me to leave off of this list, because if he just puts together some more consistency offensively, he's probably he's probably floating up there with Jokic, right? He's incredible defensively. It's hard because you can't quantify exactly what he means defensively, but he's the anchor of the best defensive team in the playoffs, and I even saying this out loud feel a little silly for not having him on. And yet, Steph Curry and Giannis are the 2 best players in the sport. They are consistently great. Giannis obviously falls off a little bit this year. He's not eligible for this list. He's not in the playoffs. Curry has a 50-point Game 7 on the road, the only one in NBA history to his name already in these playoffs. He has consistently affected the game, whether it has been with his scoring or his passing. And I think tonight he is due for a 40-something piece. And he also, by the way, rebounds the ball well. He does enough defensively that he's not a liability, even though they obviously attack him with the Lakers. Like, it's not Steph's fault that he defended well against Lonnie Walker, who had the quarter of his life. Steph's still the answer. And I cannot believe you put Jimmy Butler 1. It makes me question ever asking for your basketball opinion.
It's okay, hey, Craig. We're going to agree to disagree.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. We're also going to agree to tell you everybody what's trending, and then we're going to do real things next.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
It's chance Anthony looks smarter after tonight. It's chance I look smarter after tonight. We'll see. Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, both in action. Butler in the Heat trying to knock out the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. 7:30 tip on TNT. And then the Lakers and the Warriors, 10 o'clock tip on TNT from Golden State. Nationals playing this afternoon. Got a big old win, 11-6 on getaway day in San Francisco. Mystics had their final preseason tune-up today. 88-76 win over the Atlanta Dream. And the Washington Spirit in action tonight at Audi Field. They face Orlando Pride in a NWSL Challenge Cup game. That is a 7:30 kickoff down the road at Audi. See you there. And also in football today, I should have gone with an Italian accent, but I didn't. Inter Milan defeats AC Milan 2-0 in the Champions League semifinal. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app as well. Anthony, you ever forget to do basic things for yourself, like for your own well-being?
Yes. So I'm down to my last roll of toilet tissue, and I need to go to the store and go get some more, and I still have not done that.
Yeah, it sounds like that should be a stop on your way home.
Yeah.
Also, this is why I just get toilet paper on Amazon.
You order toilet paper?
Yeah, because then it comes to you and you don't have to forget.
You're right.
Like, if you don't have to stop at the store and it just comes to you, then you don't forget to stop at the store. That's
a great point. I think I still need to make that stop today.
No. Today you need to make the stop. Yeah. No, this is a note for future planning ahead, Anthony. There's just certain things like, look, Amazon doesn't need free advertising. If there's another more local courier that can do the same kind of stuff, great. But like, this is why Subscribe and Save exists. You're going to go through a certain amount of certain household items every so often. You just subscribe and save, and then it shows up, and you're like, oh, hey, I got more. Sweet. And you don't run out. Or like, hey, I'm on my last pack, right? They come in like, they come in, I don't know how you buy it. You probably don't buy singles, right? So if you buy, whether it's a 3, a 12, whatever, you're down to your last roll, you're down to your last 2. You buy one of the big boxes, you're down to your last, like, of the smaller packs inside the bigger box. Then you go and order it. So whether you do the subscribe and save method and just have it show up every 6 months, or you do that, it's a lot easier to just get certain stuff without having to run to the store.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that.
There you go. This has reminded me of a funny story, though. So remember start of the pandemic when everyone freaked out because there was no toilet paper?
Yeah.
I felt like the biggest jerk in the world because for those that don't know, I was working for the Washington Spirit at the time. Mm-hmm. And right before the world shut down, we left for a preseason training camp in Florida, like as the world was shutting down. I think we actually left like the day after the NBA shut down. I was like, yeah, we're still going to go. We think this will just be a couple-week thing, so we're going to go do our preseason training camp. And, like, obviously, everyone was very wrong on the couple-of-weeks thing. So we go down there, and I had just gotten, like, a big subscribe and save Amazon delivery of toilet paper. I was gone for 2 weeks in Florida at this resort that we were having preseason camp at, which turned into a ghost town very quickly, which was very kind of nice, to be honest. We had, like, our own like private resort. The staff got to the point where it's like, yeah, we're kind of just here for you guys. When are you leaving? But I literally remember telling a friend, like, I will text my roommate to have them let you in my house if you run out. Like, I have literally a gigantic box of like 48 rolls because I did it like every 6 months. Subscribe and save.
That's clutch.
Yeah. And I had just happened to get one not knowing the world was about to shut down. And so I was in Florida not using any and just had some stashed away.
Luck was on your side.
Should have sold it to whoever and I could have retired.
I don't know if selling toilet paper would have retired you, but
in March of 2020?
Good thought.
That's true. No one would have paid that much. Could have felt a little better.
Yeah.
Could have gotten myself a nice gift, a nice dinner in the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now that I've shared that story, it's time for real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. We love a JJ Redick first take cold open takeover. Here was today's, and it sounds a little like something we've done on our show before.
Got a JJ Redick, a.k.a. Top Gun takeover. What are you mad about segment? We all know JJ's tired of hearing about Bob Cousy. So, JJ, what's got you heated? Talk to me.
Now, I may be a little bit more subdued than Mad Dog in general. I actually want to start here. I want to start here before we get into my 3 things that I'm mad about. Here's what I'm really mad about. This is not my show. This is not my show. Listen to what I've had to do today. I've had to do the cold open, JJ's A-list, Telestration. What are you mad about? I need a raise.
That's how you negotiate. That's JJ, business genius. Go on TV, scream that you need a raise, and then let it leak out that you interviewed for the Raptors job. And if ESPN wants to keep you, and by the way, he might be someone they've got circled to call the NBA Finals in the future. It's a good way to get a raise.
That could be fun.
That'd be fun. By the way, him calling the NBA Finals would be great.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic had some fun last night on TNT with a similar-sized human being.
You passed Wilt Chamberlain tonight. Most triple-doubles by a center. Congrats on that one, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Where is Shaq in that? Is it Shaq in that list?
No, because I never passed, big honey.
It's the self-awareness for me. I got one more that you got one more. Never mind. All right. Draymond Green on the mindset the Warriors have going into tonight. We'll play this one. I have one more I was going to pull that we didn't get to previously, but I like this one better. And then we'll do a quick prediction for the Warriors tonight.
I think every game that you win from this point on, like every game, period, every game won in the series flips the pressure to the other team. The moment you win a game, the pressure flips to the other team. I don't care if it's game 1. I don't care if it's game 6. Only time the pressure doesn't flip to the other team is when you win game 7. Once game 7 is won, pressure doesn't flip to the other team. That team goes home, you move on. So for us, the goal is to win one game. We've been here before. And we know what it takes. And like I said, the goal is to win one game. You go win one game, all the pressure flips. You go back to crypto, 3-2, essentially puts them in a must-win situation. No one wants to go on the road for a game 7. Must-win situations are a little different than any other game. I think for us, the goal is always going to be, and the goal right now is just to go win the next game.
Love it. It's so true, too. All of a sudden, the Warriors win. You get 2 days of, can the Lakers actually close it out? Are the defending champs back? Can they win one road game? They've never won or never had a series where they haven't won a road game with Stephen Curry. Anthony, do they do it tonight?
Warriors win tonight.
I agree. By the way, the thing at the start of the segment, when we don't take care of ourselves, it started because I forgot my water bottle in the other studio for the entirety of the show. I'm going to go get some water now. BetMGM tonight is next.
Listen Thursday